we're going to be starting the full face or three-quarter view, but I wanted to use my profile view just to remind you of a couple of measurements that will apply, but a little bit differently when we draw the face, when we see a little bit more of it. The first one is going to be exactly the same, and that is that our eye is going to be placed exactly in the center from the highest part of the head to the chin. So in other words, this measurement and this measurement to the top of the head are equal. Now you're going to have some people who are going to have poofy hair, and in fact his hair goes slightly above where his actual scalp is. But remember that that is always going to be the case. While many of these measurements are rule of thumb, this one applies to pretty much all adults. The only people it wouldn't apply to would be children, and in that case they would be lower than center because children have a much bigger upper head. But we aren't drawing any children, so it's not going to apply to those you're going to be drawing. The other measurement that we used with profile, which is probably the most important with profile, is that this from the back of the eye to the jawline is the same as the back of the eye to the back of the ear. Now that still applies to the new drawings that we're going to be doing, but you're going to see it much differently. So you're going to begin, as we always do, with your light until right drawing. Now this needs a lot of refinement. I did this very, very, very quickly just for the sake of this video, and I will need to refine it. But I wanted to show you my photo of Mrs. Harrington. I chose it partly because, again, I love the lighting. The light was coming in through her office window, and I thought it looked really, really nice. So you will see that the measurement that I just told you about eyes being in the center of the head apply exactly to her. The top of her head is about here. Her hair goes slightly above it, and then her chin obviously is here. So the eyes are really in the center. The other important measurement is the center axis, and that's the middle of your face. So if I put my pencil down the middle of her face, you're going to see that she is slightly turned this way, but very, very slightly. So if I could see her ears, and I might be able to in the actual photo, because I'm going to use the digital photo instead, you would be able to see this ear, but you wouldn't be able to see this ear. Now, obviously, she has hair covering her ears. So if you choose somebody where you can see the ear, actually, I think you can see it. Yeah, you can see it just a little bit there. But you're going to draw what you see. So don't put some big fat ears, though you're drawing the profile view, because you're not going to see it unless you are drawing a three-quarter view, and then you're going to see a lot more of the ear. But let's talk a little bit about that center axis and the lining for where the eyes go. So if you want to, you can actually draw a line very lightly down the middle of your head shape. Now your head shape is going to depend on who it is you're drawing. So when we did our little funky, let's learn our proportions, that head looked more like an egg. Whereas in this case, her head is more of an elongated oval. So it wouldn't fit to draw that really tight egg shape. I have to actually look at that actual shape. So I know I've got this down the center, so now I'm going to measure half. And I've already got my eyes there, and that is exactly where the half shape is. I can see that I have one eye a little bit too high, so I'll fix that later on. So remember as well, the nose is going to be a little less than halfway down from here to here. So it's going to be about a little more than a third, a little less than a half. It is very important to look at how much space is between the bottom of the nose and the upper lip. I don't have enough space now, which tells me I'm going to have to reposition my lips. So those are very, very important things to do. And then you are just drawing your shapes in. You want to remember that you are not drawing what your symbols in your head tell you to do. So when I look at the actual photo, I have to look to see what is happening. I see where this line comes in. There's going to be a big dark area here. I follow the swoops of the hair. You're not drawing hair like this. I'm going to have to redraw this because I'm scribbling all over it, but that's okay. And you're going to look to see where the light source is. In this case, it's obvious the light's coming from this direction. This is going to be really important because then when you start shading, you're going to put that little catch light in the eyes. Very important to put that in eyes because otherwise a person doesn't look alive. So when you draw lips, it is almost always the case that the upper lip is going to be in more shadow than the lower lip. Everybody has different shaped lips, so don't just put some standard lips on there. Look to see what's actually happening. And this center section, which as I've said before, is the only true contour on a face because it actually opens, will define that person's attitude or their emotional look. Because as you can see, she's not full out smiling, but there's a little hint of a smile there. You are not going to make a heavy line up or below on a lip. There's soft shading differences. Often just above the lip is a little bit of light area. This little horseshoe shape, which I understand is called a Cupid's bow, is really very, very important. Look to see how much of that is showing. Don't draw it in really heavy though, it's barely there. There's going to be a shadow under the lower lip, and then you'll see the chin being defined. Now in her case, she's got a lot more shading in the chin because she's got this little divot here, which I think makes it really very interesting. Eyes. Now these are the things that we draw symbolically more than anything else. And in her case, she does have definite eyelashes I can see, but I am not going to go in there and make it look like a moth has landed on her eye. You have to just barely put them in. In some cases, you're not going to see any eyelashes. And eyelashes on the bottom do not grow out of this edge. There's a little bit of skin that goes there because they don't grow straight out of there. When you're drawing the iris, that's the colored part, don't draw the iris. Look to see how much of the whites are showing and draw it in as a negative space. So that's what I'm beginning to do here. When you put in your eyebrows, look to see again, this shape here is going to become a negative space. Everybody's eyebrows grow at a different place. You might find the eyebrow is going to be sitting right here on some of the photos we have, but look at this shape in here and that will help you define the eyebrows. The older a person gets, the more this shape is going to be apparent. She's not very old, so hers is barely there. But you're going to need to put in some of these things that define who the person is, but you don't, again, want to chisel it in, especially if they're like bags. If you were to draw me, I'd have bags. Sometimes you're going to see the upper lid in a really defined manner, and sometimes you're not. So here's a really important thing. This line connects to the nose. So your eyebrow connects to the nose. And then the nose, you are going to draw the ball of the nose. I'm not obviously using this photo for my drawing. And then you attach the little side parts onto that ball. The nostrils are barely there for the most part. Not for everybody, but most people they're going to be barely there. In some cases, you're not going to see the nostrils at all. Then again, this little shape will define the upper lip. I don't draw the upper lip first. I draw the center section first. Then I lightly put in the upper lip, and I very lightly put in the lower lip, okay? But this line connects to this line. A lot of people will draw the nose line straight up like that. That doesn't connect anything. This has to connect here because that's where the muscle is in the face. So I'm not going to erase that, doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go ahead and move this aside. I've done a couple of little, where are they? Here they are. A little pre-drawings here to show you noses again. 3/4 nose, you're going to see more of one of the nostril and less of the other. In fact, you may not see any of the other nostril. It might just be a shadow. Straight on nose, as I just said, look at the ball of the nose. Nostrils don't sit right next to each other. There's got to be room here for the bridge of the nose to go down over this. So look at that shape. If you're drawing a 3/4 view, that center axis is going to move with your person. So in other words, it's not going to be in the center of that ball, but it's going to be in the center of the face. So this is kind of a really quick Mr. Martinez drawing. But always the eyes are going to be in the center. Now, you might say, well, what if his head is tilted down? Well, then it's still in the center of the face. It just is going to be lower than center if it's tilted down, or higher than center from our view if he's tilted up, but it still is always in the center of that person's actual face, okay? When you're drawing 3/4 view as well, as I said, you're going to show one ear more than the other. In this case, you would see this one. Reminder of the ear measurement, it's from the top of the eye socket to somewhere between the bottom of the nose and the upper lip, depending on the person. Eyes, as I said, are some of the things that we draw symbolically more than anything else. So you need to look at where that lid comes in. This is Miss Roach. Her lid comes in right on her eye, where the fold here, it's not really her lid, it's the fold. And once again, you're going to look at how much of the whites are showing rather than draw that shape independently. When you get to shading, the pupil is very important. So I'm not actually looking at her, so I don't really know whether the shading relates to what's there. But you're going to shade down, not yet because you're light until right, but you're going to shade down and you're going to leave out that little highlight in there. If you don't shade the eyes darkly enough, they are not going to look dimensional. So I would have to do more on this. Also, the eye is a ball. If I were to take her eyeball out, that would hurt, but it would be round. So you're going to have shadow in there. So you're not going to just make it all white because it's going to be in shadow. This is going to become really important when we start painting later on, but right now we're not painting. Another thing that a lot of people forget is the tear duct. Tear ducts are very important, so you need to look at that. But in her case, this is where that's going to be. It's not going to be down here. Over here is where I would begin her eyebrow, and I look at this negative space here, and I look at this as a shape. I'm drawing the eyebrow, yes, but I'm drawing it more as a space above a negative space. Down here, I think this is Mr. Martinez's eye, I can't remember. His eyelid, his shape here goes way above the eye. His eyelid's actually here, so that's actually where his eye socket would be. So there's much more definition there. And look at the difference in the eye shape. His is much more like a little point here. And again, I look to see how much of the whites are showing rather than drawing in the iris. If you draw in the iris without looking at this as negative space, the iris is going to be too large. And once again, if I were shading this, I don't know where his actual light is coming from, but I would make it, even though her eyes are dark, his eyes are lighter, but I'm still going to shade it. It wouldn't be as dark as Ms. Roach's eyes, but they would still be shaded, and I would do it much better than I'm doing now. Okay, so see, you have to look at actual shapes, so don't be using any of those symbols. We want to get rid of symbols. Eyelashes, again, for Mr. Martinez, you might see a little bit. For her, you don't really see very many eyelashes because of the way her eyelid folds over there. You might see a little bit here, but you're going to hint at them. So I didn't talk much about ears because we talked quite in detail about ears with the profile view. So your job now is to choose your person. If you haven't already, you really should have already. Do your light until right. Refine it before any shading is on there. If you need to put in that center axis very, very lightly, do it really lightly, because I've actually had it in here 4 times because I kept making mistakes when I did the video. Remember as well, the shoulder area is going to come out the pit of the neck. So I don't want to see any shoulders way down here. It's easier to put the shoulder far down on a 3/4 view or a straight angle because we tend to think this neck goes here and the shoulder goes here, but no, neck is here, shoulder's going to be up there. So you have your photo, you can actually measure with your pencil. So do not want to see anybody put their eyes way up here. Remember that we have to have room for that brain space. It's always going to be in the center. I've got mine slightly high here. I'm going to have to move them down. Look at this space here. Draw the ball of the nose. Draw the center section of the mouth first before applying those lips on there. And lips are soft. They shouldn't look like wax lips that were bought at Walmart for Thanksgiving. For the ears, it's going to start at the top of the eye socket and go somewhere between here. So if I were to see her ears, that's where they'd be. In fact, I'm pretty sure I can see a little bit right in that one there. All right, go ahead and start, and I will show you my progress as I continue.